Now, Japan's population has seen its steepest drop on record.
Records show Japan's population has dropped by almost 1 million people in a single year. It's a sign of deepening.
New government data shows the number of Japanese nationals fell by about 908,000 in 2024.
Even before the pandemic hit, Japan has had a serious problem with loneliness.
Imagine a world without Japan. No Tokyo's neon skyline. No birthplace of anime, samurai, sushi, or bullet trains. Sounds impossible, right? Yet experts warn that by the end of this century, Japan as we know it may virtually disappear, not through war, not even through disaster, but from within, a collapse of population. In August 2025, Japan's Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba warned, our falling birth rate and shrinking population threaten the very foundations of the nation. A quiet emergency. Japan has just recorded its largest ever population drop. Almost 908,000 people gone in a single year. For every baby born, more than 2 people die. The total fertility rate has fallen to just 1.15 children per woman, far below the replacement level of 2.1. Japan is aging faster than any society in human history. Nearly 30% of Japanese are over 65, the second highest elderly share in the world after Monaco. In contrast, the working age population is shrinking, making up barely 59% of society. Entire towns are vanishing. Schools close, houses rot empty, and rural villages are now filled with life-size dolls where children once played. Politicians like Taro Kono, a veteran lawmaker, warn of the danger. As the number of elderly increases and the working age population shrinks, society won't be able to sustain itself. Even our self-defense forces last year recruited only half of what we need. So how did this happen? Why is the world's third largest economy, home to about 123 million people in 2025, now on course to shrink to nearly half that by the century's end? To understand, we first need to look at the scale of the crisis. Japan's crisis didn't appear overnight. The population has been shrinking for 16 straight years, ever since its peak of 128 million in 2008. But what alarms experts now is not just the decline, it's the speed of the fall. Births in 2024, just 686,000, the lowest since records began in 1899. Deaths in 2024, nearly 1.6 million, the highest ever recorded. Net loss, roughly 900,000 people in a single year, the steepest drop on record. Foreign residents, a record 3.6 million, but still under 3% of the total population. At this pace, Japan's population could slip below 100 million by the 2050s and shrink to around 60 million by 2100. Less than half of today's Japan. More adult diapers are sold than baby diapers. Over 9,000 schools have closed since the early 2000s. Rural Japan is filled with IKEA, abandoned homes, sometimes given away for free. Meanwhile, kodokushi, or lonely deaths, are rising, where the elderly die alone and are found weeks later. Then there's hikikomori. Over 1 million people, mostly men, withdraw completely from society, never marrying or having children. In megacities like Tokyo, the birth rate is even lower. Urban couples often delay or avoid marriage altogether, overwhelmed by high housing costs and punishing work schedules. In rural villages, depopulation is so extreme that puppet masters literally replace missing neighbors with dolls. In one village west of Kyoto, there are 40 life-sized puppets for fewer than 50 people. A growing number of Japanese are choosing not to marry. In 2023, fewer than 500,000 marriages took place, the lowest since 1917. As writer Roland Keltz put it, Japan is ahead of the game. It's the canary in the coal mine. Where Japan goes, the rest of the developed world may follow. Japan today is a nation in slow-motion collapse, still vibrant, still powerful, but quietly hollowing out from within. Japan's population collapse didn't happen overnight. It's the result of decades of social, economic, and cultural shifts. To really understand why Japan is disappearing, we need to break it down into several interconnected reasons. In modern Japan, raising a child is often seen as a luxury only the wealthy can afford. From expensive daycare fees to the rising cost of education and housing, many young couples simply feel they cannot handle the financial burden of having children. Tokyo, for example, is one of the most expensive cities in the world to raise a family. Parents spend huge sums on cram schools, extracurricular activities, and university tuition. Surveys show that young couples worry they'll never be able to buy a home if they have 2 or more children. So instead of starting families, many delay marriage or choose to remain child-free. The numbers prove it. In 2024, Japan recorded just 686,000 births, the lowest since records began, compared to 1.6 million deaths. Japan's infamous work culture is another silent killer of the birth rate. Long working hours, social pressure to put the company first, and the phenomenon known as karoshi, which means death by overwork, leave little room for family life. Many men and women simply don't have time for relationships, marriage, or parenting. Even when couples have children, fathers are rarely present because of their jobs. Though Japan has generous paternity leave on paper, fewer than 20% of eligible fathers actually take it, fearing career setbacks. As one young Tokyo father told reporters, "I wanted to be there when my daughter took her first steps, but my boss expected me to be in the office until 10 p.m. every night. I missed it." That kind of story is painfully common. In the past, marriage and children were seen as the natural path for every Japanese adult. But today's younger generations prioritize freedom, travel, career, and personal fulfillment. More women are highly educated and employed, but traditional gender roles at home haven't shifted as quickly. Many women say they don't want to marry because it means carrying the double burden of childcare and housework, even if they work full-time. Meanwhile, an entire industry has risen around people living solo, from solo dining restaurants to companies offering solo wedding packages, where a woman can rent a dress and pose for wedding photos without ever getting married. Another reason lies in geography. Japan's cities are crowded and expensive, while rural towns are shrinking and hollowing out. Villages once filled with children are now ghost towns, with more abandoned homes than residents. In some towns, elderly residents place life-sized dolls on benches and in classrooms, creating eerie puppet villages to replace the people who have died or moved away. Urban couples, meanwhile, delay or avoid children because of cramped apartments, long commutes, and lack of family support. All of these factors feed into each other. Fewer marriages mean fewer babies. Fewer babies mean fewer future parents. And as the population shrinks, the economic pressure on the younger generation grows, making it even harder to afford families. This is the vicious cycle Japan is stuck in, and every year, the numbers worsen. So what happens when a country doesn't have enough children to replace its population? Japan is already living that future, and the consequences are striking, sometimes heartbreaking. Nearly 30% of Japan's population is now over 65, the highest ratio in the world. Nursing homes are full, and hospitals are overwhelmed. There are towns where the average age is 75. This puts a massive strain on Japan's social security and healthcare systems. Fewer workers must support more retirees, and the math simply doesn't add up. One of the saddest consequences is the rise of kodokushi, or lonely deaths. Every year, tens of thousands of elderly people die alone in their apartments, undiscovered for days or even weeks. Government officials have even appointed a minister of loneliness to tackle the crisis of social isolation. Volunteers called loneliness supporters now visit elderly people living alone, but the problem is growing faster than it can be solved. Since the early 2000s, over 9,000 schools have closed due to a lack of students. In some rural areas, entire school districts have disappeared. Meanwhile, abandoned homes, or IKEA, now number in the millions. By 2030, it's predicted that 1 in 3 homes in Japan could be empty. Entire towns are being wiped off the map. Japan's shrinking workforce means labor shortages in key industries, from manufacturing to eldercare. Companies are turning to robots and artificial intelligence to fill the gaps, but productivity alone can't replace people. Even Japan's defense forces are struggling to recruit soldiers. With fewer young people, the question arises: how can Japan defend itself in an increasingly tense East Asia? As one Japanese politician bluntly put it, If we don't change course, our country will disappear. Japan's population decline may seem unstoppable, but the country is trying a variety of strategies to slow or even reverse the trend. The solutions range from government programs to societal shifts, technology, and a push for immigration. Let's explore them. The Japanese government has poured trillions of yen into programs designed to encourage people to have children. These include childcare subsidies. Parents can receive significant financial support for daycare and education. Fertility treatment assistance. Couples struggling with infertility can receive government aid for expensive procedures, making it more affordable to have children. Housing incentives. Special loans and subsidies are available for families with children to buy or renovate homes. Despite these measures, experts caution that money alone is not enough. Social expectations, urban living costs, and work-life balance still weigh heavily on young couples. One major barrier has been Japan's gendered household norms, where mothers shoulder most childcare responsibilities. The government has introduced campaigns to encourage men to take paternity leave. While adoption of these policies has historically been low, awareness is slowly increasing. Companies are being nudged to allow men to stay home without fear of career setbacks. Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba has emphasized, for Japan to survive, we must reshape family life. Fathers must be partners, not spectators. A major focus is getting people to move away from Tokyo and other crowded cities to rural areas. Some villages are offering financial incentives for families to relocate. Towns like Ikenono are promoting a return to a traditional, nature-connected lifestyle, attracting families seeking space, fresh air, and a slower pace. Politicians like Honoko Okoda argue that creating jobs in rural areas is key. If young people can earn a decent living outside megacities, they're more likely to start families. One inspiring story: the Kato family moved to Ikenono, and their son Kurinosu became the first baby born in the village in over 20 years. Small victories like these show the potential of rural revitalization. Japan is turning to technology to mitigate population pressures. Care robots. With an aging population, robots assist in nursing homes and hospitals. They help reduce the burden on human workers. AI matchmaking. Cities like Tokyo are using artificial intelligence to match singles for relationships, hoping to increase marriage and birth rates. Tokyo Governor Yuriko Koike reported that applications for the AI-powered dating app exceeded expectations 3 or 4 times over. Solo living solutions. Businesses have created environments for single people, including solo ramen shops and single karaoke rooms. While these support individual lifestyles, the government hopes to steer singles toward forming families. Japan has traditionally been a very homogeneous society with strict immigration rules. But demographic reality is forcing change. The number of foreign residents reached 3.6 million in 2024, the highest ever. The government introduced a digital nomad visa and new upskilling programs to attract skilled workers. Japan plans to triple its foreign workforce by 2040, allowing more workers to bring families and settle long-term. Immigration remains controversial, but it may be essential to fill labor gaps and maintain economic stability. Without it, Japan's workforce could shrink drastically, impacting everything from factories to hospitals to the military. Another solution addresses Japan's punishing work culture. Some local governments are experimenting with 4-day workweeks, especially for government employees, to give parents more time to raise children. The idea is simple. If people have time for family life, they're more likely to marry and have children. Reducing overwork could also improve mental health and make parenting less stressful. Perhaps the most difficult but vital solution is changing social norms. Society needs to value family life alongside career success. Gender roles at home must evolve so women don't feel penalized for having children. Urban life should become more family-friendly, with space for play, green areas, and affordable housing. Honoko Okoda, a former Tokyo lawyer turned politician, stresses, "We need a sweeping mindset change. Tokyo cannot remain the only option. Rural areas must offer opportunity, space, and hope for the next generation." In summary, Japan's solutions are multi-layered. Financial support, gender equality, rural revitalization, technological innovation, controlled immigration. and cultural transformation. But even with these measures, reversing decades of decline will take time, decades, in fact, and requires both government leadership and societal cooperation. Japan stands at a crossroads. A nation once celebrated for its culture, technology, and global influence now faces a challenge unprecedented in its history. The question remains, can Japan be saved? The government is acting, offering financial incentives, easing immigration, promoting paternity leave, and experimenting with a 4-day workweek. Families are moving back to rural towns. Technology is stepping in where people cannot, from care robots assisting the elderly to AI matchmaking helping singles connect. True change requires a shift in mindset, a society willing to balance ambition with family, work with life, and tradition with innovation. For the world, Japan's crisis is a warning, a glimpse of what might come for countries with falling birth rates and aging populations. So, as we watch the rising sun over a shrinking nation, one thing is clear. Japan's challenge is not just to survive, but to reimagine what it means to thrive in the 21st century. And in that journey, every policy, every family, every citizen counts. Remember, population isn't just about numbers, it's about people, identity, and hope.